During the pre-colonial period in the Philippines, which spanned from before 1565, the archipelago was a collection of independent chiefdoms, each with its own unique political and social systems. These communities often practiced some form of democratic decision-making, typically through councils or assemblies. There is no unified political entity but a collection of numerous chiefdoms and barangays spread across the archipelago. The leader of this unit is a chief known as Datu. Trial by ordeal was a traditional method of determining innocence or guilt in the pre-colonial Philippines. It often involved subjecting the accused to a physical or supernatural test, such as walking on hot coals or being exposed to poisonous creatures. This practice was rooted in the belief that supernatural forces would ensure justice. It was a significant aspect of the indigenous legal systems in various regions. Stratification. Pre-colonial Philippine societies were stratified with a hierarchical social structure. At the top were the nobility, Maharlika or datus, who held power and authority, followed by the freemen, Timawa, who were free but not considered nobility and were often engaged in various economic activities. Further down, there were the serfs, aliping namamahay, and the slave, aliping sa gigilid, who were often in the service to the upper classes. Social status was often determined by birthright, wealth, and achievements. Maharlika. The Maharlika were a class of nobility in pre-colonial Philippine society. They were considered the warrior class and were expected to defend their communities and rulers. Datu is also included here and recognized as the ruler of the community. Maharlika enjoyed privilege including land ownership, but they were also bound to serve and protect their leaders. It's also considered the highest-ranking members of society. Aliping sa gigilid and aliping namamahay. Aliping sa gigilid and aliping namamahay were the lowest classes in pre-colonial Philippine society. They were essentially slaves or indentured servants. Aliping sa gigilid had limited right and was considered property, while aliping namamahay had slightly more freedom but was bound to their masters.
The Spanish colonial period of Philippine history spans the years 1565 to 1898, up until the Mexican Empire's independence from Spain in 1821. The Philippine Islands were controlled as the Captaincy General of the Philippines under the Spanish East Indies, first under the Philippines, then by the Viceroyalty of New Spain, with the capital in Mexico City. During a period of turbulence in the local government, this resulted in direct Spanish rule. The monarchy ruled the Philippines directly from 1821 to 1898, with the defeat of Spain by the United States in the battle known as the Spanish-American War. The Spanish colonial era came to an end, and the American colonial era in the Philippine history began. Magellan Ferdinand. Portuguese explorer Ferdinand Magellan visited the Philippines in 1521 while en route around the globe, but Lapu-Lapu, a chieftain, killed him at the Battle of Mactan. While Magellan's presence preceded the start of Spanish colonial rule in the Philippines, it was his expedition that made the first European contact with the archipelago and ultimately paved the way for Spanish colonization. Lopez de Legazpi Miguel. In 1565, a Spanish conquistador named Miguel Lopez de Legazpi landed in the Philippines and founded Cebu's first Spanish town. In 1571, he led an expedition to Luzon and founded Manila, which became the center of Spanish colonial power in the Philippines. This marked the beginning of over 3 centuries of Spanish colonial rule. Before Spanish colonization, the Philippines consisted of numerous independent barangays or local communities. These barangays had their own governance systems and were often headed by a datu or chieftain. Cabeza de Barangay. The head of a barangay or barrio during the Spanish rule in the Philippines was known as the Cabeza de Barangay, also known as the Teniente del Barrio, holder of the barrio. Philip II of Spain ruled the nobility in the Philippine Islands should maintain the honors and privileges they had before their conversion to Christianity and submission to Spanish rule. Gobernadorcillo. During the Spanish colonial era, the Gobernadorcillo, locally Ignacio, literally little governor, was a municipal judge or governor in the Philippines who oversaw the combined duties of judicial, economic, and leadership administration in a town. Their term of office was 2 years.
Alcalde Mayor from at least the 14th century to the 19th century, a regional magistrate in Spain and its dependencies was known as an Alcalde Mayor. These regional leaders held judicial, executive, legislative, and military power. They performed judicial and executive duties instead of an alcalde. Chief administrators in colonial era, administrative territories known as alcaldes mayores in New Spain, Mexico, and were corregimientos in colonial era, Peru, were referred to as alcaldes mayores. Corregidor. By February 27, the Americans had taken 19 prisoners and killed around 4,500 Japanese. By the beginning of March, Corregidor was in American hands formally, but not without cause. By March 2, there had been over 1,000 casualties for the Americans, including 210 fatalities. On March 2, 1945, General MacArthur examined the 503rd. I noticed that the flagpole still stands. As he observed after congratulating the troops on their win, lift the flag to its highest point and never allow an adversary to take it down. Royal Audiencia on May 5, 1583. The Royal Audiencia was founded. Its members included a president, 4 oidores justice, and a fiscal. The Audiencia performed both judicial and administrative duties. When a Chief Justice took the role of the President and the number of justices was raised in 1815, its operations and structure were altered, with 2 branches, civil and criminal. It became known as the Audiencia Territorial de Manila.
Philippine Revolutionary period refers to the era of struggle and resistance against Spanish colonial rule and the quest for independence. Revolutionary period was a significant chapter in Philippine history when Filipinos began to seek independence from Spanish colonial rule. It was marked by the rise of various movements and leaders who advocated for political reforms and ultimately independence. The propaganda movement, Filipino reformers known as the propaganda movement, which was active in the late 19th century, included important individuals including Jose Rizal and Marcelo H. and Graciano Lopez Jaena. They promoted political and social reforms within the framework of the Spanish colonial system through their writings and publications. The acronym KKK stands for Kataas-Taasan, Kagalang-Galangan, Katipunan ng mga Anak ng Bayan. Andres Bonifacio created the Katipunan, often known as the KKK, in 1892 with the intention of attaining Philippine independence from Spanish domination. It participated in the Philippine Revolution against the Spanish and utilized armed resistance. The Tejeros Convention. The Tejeros Convention was held on March 22, 1897 and was an attempt to establish a revolutionary government. It ended in controversy as Andres Bonifacio was defeated by Emilio Aguinaldo in the election for the leader of revolutionary government. Biak na Bato Republic. The Biak na Bato Republic was a short-lived Philippine revolutionary government established in 1897. It was founded in the Cape of Biak na Bato and was instrumental in negotiations with the Spanish government for reforms and the eventual cessation of hostilities. Declaration of Independence. On June 12, 1898, General Emilio Aguinaldo declared the Philippines independence from Spanish colonial rule. This historic event took place in Kawit, Cavite and is celebrated unusually as Philippines Independence Day. The first Philippine Republic following the Declaration of Independence, the first Philippine Republic was formally established with Aguinaldo as its first president. Unfortunately, this republic's existence short-lived as the United States defeated Spain in the Spanish-American War, leading to the Treaty of Paris in 1898, which ceded the Philippines to the United States.
The American period's history in 1898 to 1941, when Spain surrendered the islands to the United States as a consequence of the Treaty of Paris in 1898, the Philippines entered the American period, when the United States seized possession of the Philippines' Spanish colonial rule came to an end. The Treaty of Paris in 1898 signifies the conclusion of the Spanish to American War and resulted in the handover of the multiple territories from Spain to the United States. Among these was the Philippines, which had been under Spanish dominion for more than 300 years. As per the agreement, the United States provided Spain with $20 million as reparation for obtaining these lands. This occurrence had a substantial impact on the contemporary narrative of the Philippines. Philippines military government. Following the Treaty of Paris, the U.S. installed a military regime in the Philippines. The Philippine to American War in 1899 to 1902 was put to an end. During this time period, which was marked by a military presence, the Spooner Amendment of 1902 gave the United States the power to end military rule in the Philippines by establishing a civilian government there. It opened the door for a chance to a more democratically run government. William H. Taft. William Howard Taft served as the Philippines' first civilian governor from 1901 until 1904. He was a major contributor to the implementation of the nation's infrastructure projects and reforms. Philippine Organic Act enacted in 1902. The Philippine Organic Act, also known as the Philippine Bill of 1902, established a legislative system for the Philippines and created a bicameral legislature. It granted certain civil rights to Filipinos. The Jones Law of 1916 granted the Philippines more autonomy by creating an elected Philippine Senate and expanding self-government. This was a step toward greater Filipino participation in governance. Tidings-McDuffie Act of 1934 paved the way for Philippine independence by providing a 10-year transition period toward self-government, leading to full independence in 1946. Japanese occupation. The Japanese occupied the Philippines from 1942 to 1945, which led to a period of severe hardship and conflict. Philippine Republic 1943. Under Japanese sponsorship, in 1943, the Japanese erected a puppet state known as the Second Philippine Republic, with Jose P. Laurel as its leader. General Douglas MacArthur returned to the Philippines. In 1944, General Douglas MacArthur made good on his vow to free the Philippines. This was a turning point in the Philippines' independence from Japanese rule.